Hello and welcome to the Otaku Network Podcast. My name is Steve.
And I'm David.
We're going to be reviewing 3 shows each season. One of us will pick a show, particularly of a type that the other person doesn't necessarily want to watch, and then we have a third show that we both agree on to watch. 3 shows we're watching are The Many Sides of Voice Actors Radio, Re-Monsters, and Astro Note. Astro Note is the pick that we both decided on. So we're going to start out with my choice. Many Sides of Voice Actor Radio features 2 high school girls who are trying to pursue careers in voice act. The main character, or I guess the first character that is introduced, is Yumiko Sato, and she is a gyaru type character. She has been struggling with getting work and is kind of depressed about that. So Chika Watanabe is the more successful of the voice actors. She's able to branch off into other things within the industry. River artist? I don't actually know how to ever pronounce that. It's the one where the girls dress up in swimsuits and they're usually featured on the manga magazines, like Shonen Jump. So what happens is Yumiko Sato, the gyaru, she gets a call one day from her manager saying that they want her to do a radio show. I think it happened, a radio show with a different voice actors. I can't remember if they said if it was the one it was. Well, I guess to back it up, the audience knows, but they don't know that the 2 girls are classmates and they don't get along at all. The other girl, the more successful one, who is kind of a little bit more idolized, particularly by a otaku type character within her classroom, she is both of the girls are pretty much the opposite of the persona that they exude during their performances. The gyaru hides the fact that she is gaudy, and the other girl is very sullen and isolated and kind of the cool type character. We know that they're classmates. They don't know that they're classmates until they are both brought into a meeting to discuss creating a radio broadcast where they are interacting with each other as classmates, but under the personas of their voice actor identities.
The guy that's interviewing them does mention that he spoke to their managers and found out that they are classmates, and that's why he had the idea of having them do this with their alter egos. Yeah, the director or the producer of the show idea.
Yeah. So
I think it was the network, the guy in charge of the network.
So they get into the same room together and they freak out because they didn't realize that they were who they are professionally.
To also preface that, they did have like a spat at school because the more shy one did like saw this otaku boy's pictures of her alter ego on his desk, and the gyaru, her friend, had spilt coffee on the blue-haired girl's shoes.
Yeah, on her shoes when she came in.
Spat about it, being like, "Oh, you don't have to be so rude. She said sorry. Like, I get it was, bad, but she said sorry. You don't have to be rude about it." And like, literally, less than 5 hours later, they have to meet for this interview where they're gonna now find out that they're gonna work together.
Yeah, co-workers. So they go from a situation of not necessarily interacting and then recently coming into conflict with each other to having to be bosom buddies, essentially.
And what I thought was really funny is the gyaru had complimented the alter ego of the more dour girl. It's like, "Oh, she's so pretty and you could never be like her." And I was just like, little do you know.
So I guess that's a good lead into a critique I will have is there was a high level of Clark Kent syndrome here.
Yes.
Where they don't look that different in real life compared to their voice actor celebrity personas.
Like literally the blue-haired girl's hair is just down in her face rather than off to the side. And you're just like, how do you not tell that they're the same person?
Because a smile makes all the difference.
I know.
I mean, obviously with the gyaru where, she's dressed up a little bit more flamboyant, but it's not that big of a change. It's not like she's dyeing her hair.
Yeah, she definitely has... You could potentially pass off not being who you are with the gyaru girl, but I don't know. The other one, it's literally hair up versus hair to the side. Like
smile versus frown.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a slice of life industry comedy that the catalyst of it is it's The Odd Couple. They are two conflicting, diametrically opposed personalities who are being forced to work together with each other in the hopes of furthering their careers. So I'm sure we will see a development of friendship and understanding throughout the course of the show.
I mean, to be fair, in the first episode already, you start to see this kind of development of at least the Gyaru girl trying not to be completely hostile all the time. She's trying, like, it might be on the prodding of her manager or the writer of the show, but it is like, hey, you probably should like develop a relationship with this girl so that this doesn't come crashing down around you. And she does go out of her way to go and have lunch. I'm just going to call them by their stage names, so I don't keep referring to them as this girl, that girl. Yuhi, which is the blue-haired girl, and Yasumi, which is the brown-haired girl. Yuhi was having lunch by herself, and Yasumi went and had lunch with her so that she wasn't alone, and then kind of was making compliments about like, oh, you're working on, the script for tonight's show. Like, that's really studious of you and like really good and being prepared for tonight.
To be fair, though, in that exchange, the other girl saw exactly through what she was doing.
Yeah, that's true. She did call her an idiot a couple times.
Well, she's like, you're doing this because you got told to do this, right?
Yeah.
But
if she didn't want to do it, she
correct.
Wouldn't have done it.
Sure, correct. She was definitely pushing through the effort, whether it was through obligations of work or an actual desire to form a better connection. It probably was an actual desire to form a better connection. At the end of the episode, they have to do a live broadcast in front of an audience.
Right.
Yuhi has never worked in front of a live audience before, so she's quite nervous. So the other girl is like, hey, I got a plan. So she does this thing to her, and it works to break the ice, but at the end of the program, Yuhi was really, really, really pissed off at her. And I thought for a second, oh, we're gonna get some revenge, some like anger here. My hopes came up that this was going to be a vindictive rivalry story.
Yeah.
But then she breaks, and she's like,
thank you.
It's cool, thanks. I'm like, oh, you copped out. I was really hoping for something a bit aggressive, but I don't think it's going to be aggressive.
You get the scene where Yuhi is over her shoulder, and you see like the anger for a fraction of a second, but then she hugs her, and I'm like, what's going on? Is she like, was that like embarrassment? Did I mistake that anger as embarrassment? And then it just cuts to her face, like angry, pissed off, just like, if you ever do that again, I'm gonna tell your manager, and I will make sure you never work in Japan again. And it was just like, that flipped 180 like 3 times, and I'm just, it caught me off guard, especially when a couple times in the episode I had like predicted what was going to come next. And that was the thing about at least this first episode that would be kind of a critique, is that I could definitely see specific plot points coming. 2 of the big ones were when Yuhi's pictures were on the desk. I was like, that's gonna be the girl that comes in. Like, she's gonna walk in now that her picture is being focused on the table, and 5 seconds later, guess who walked in? Or when Yasumi is at the meeting first, I'm like, Yuhi's just gonna walk in here any minute now, and then boom, Yuhi walks in. I'm like, predictive.
So I knew what was going to happen for watching the previews and doing some research in this show. Unfortunately, I don't think this show is going to be spectacular, even though it's my pick. The pattern and the concept of the show was well laid out and well established in the first episode, and I don't think it's going to deviate from that. We're just going to see a progressive advancement of their closeness, and then a mutual understanding and appreciation of the other opposite person. And maybe they'll have to tackle some hardship halfway through the season that they overcome and brings them stronger. And then they're like, oh, this is great. The journey is the real story.
Friendship is magic.
Though, to be fair, going into it, I didn't expect anything spectacular anyway.
To be fair, I had written this in my notes too. I don't think if I just saw this on Crunchyroll and I hadn't heard you say anything about this, I don't think I would have clicked on this anime and would have watched it. However, watching the first episode, I did get kind of invested in the characters, and I do kind of look forward to watching the next episode.
Sure.
I genuinely enjoyed it. Granted, I have way less experience in anime as you do. Like, I've been, a year in, and you've been...
Yeah, we should have prefaced that in the beginning. I've been actively, knowingly consuming anime for 32 years now.
And this is my first full year of consuming anime like religiously instead of just the odd I'm watching the popular animes that are on like Toonami or, you know, Cartoon Network as a kid for like Dragon Ball or Sword Art Online.
Yep. So we have the varied perspectives of the amount of media consumed within the genre or within the industry. So yeah, so we'll see where Many Sides of Voice Actors Radio will go.
So my pick was Remonster. Remonster is pretty much just your standard isekai. And basically the background of this is a man is killed at the very, like, opening not even 5 minutes, like opening minute. We're seeing this guy get stabbed and goes to a different universe where he gets reincarnated as a goblin. The first episode focuses on his initial growing up as a goblin in this universe. But the twist is that these goblins age over the span of days instead of years. A big hook of this anime is that it's been keeping track of every single day that has passed so far in this world that this man has been reincarnated in. It's your standard isekai. I'm not gonna lie. I just like it because isekai's fun. I'm a big shonen guy, and Steve's not, so I decided to, hit him with that isekai. There's a lot to unpack with even just this first episode, though, that I was not anticipating.
Like what? What didn't you anticipate within the introduction episode?
I wasn't really anticipating him or eating things and gaining their abilities.
Okay.
I wasn't expecting it to be this hidden, like, kind of video game-y kind of-ness about it. I just thought it was gonna be like, dude reincarnates in a fantasy world. He tries to figure out how to be a goblin, but all of a sudden I start seeing things pop up on screen like, you've gained this ability, you've gained this ability. I'm like, this is interesting.
So to back it up, the main character, before he was isekai'd, he was a human. We're not exactly sure if he was living in a real version of the modern world or something else. They did some flashbacks, and it didn't necessarily look like it was set in the real version of the Earth. It may have been like an alternate Earth.
There was that scene where he's standing on that, like, mountain of dead dudes, and they kind of had like a mix of Imperial Guard from 40K and the soldiers from Dune.
Yep.
Their armor kind of like reminded me of both of those.
So the main character has this ability where when he consumes something, he gains an ability from it. There is nothing that he can't consume or is unwilling to consume, which I thought was a good explanation because in the beginning, before they talked about that, they show him eating a number of things that are not necessarily ideally digestible by human standards, and he's still himself within the body of the goblin. You'd think he would bulk at some of the things that he was consuming.
Like the maggots, or those bug things
the maggots in the beginning, yes.
The, like, old grandpa goblin fed him?
Yes. And pretty much anything else that he ate as a goblin.
Well, there was the rat. Well, it was a raw rabbit.
It was a raw yes.
There was the rabbit. There was that orc that they ate.
Yes. So about halfway through, they did this whole exposition thing going, hey, I've got this ability. This is why I'm able to do all this stuff. All right. Makes a little bit more sense because I was definitely going to critique that. But like, I'm pretty sure he would be like, I don't want to eat that.
Yeah, until it got to that midway point where it's like, oh, by the way, I could eat things in my real timeline and gain their abilities. It's like, oh, that's why he's not repulsed by all this stuff.
Yep.
As a big shonen fan, I do think it is interesting about him being able to gain these abilities through consuming. It's a new way to kind of show that, at least from the isekais I've watched.
It's the hook for the overpowered abilities.
Yes.
It's the power fantasy hook.
I think it's an interesting hook for that power fantasy. I don't think I've seen it much, if at all.
I can't think if I know of any other series that have that specific thing.
To be fair, though, how much isekai do you watch?
Yeah, but it does. I mean, I even though I don't consume them, I have a moderate level of awareness about some of the plot points. So he goes through the standard thing of, level 1 creature, and then he slowly understands his reality, understands how the world operates, and then he gets increasingly stronger, and that speed is sped up through the rapid development of the goblins.
Right.
And that's kind of, just standard fantasy RPG, living within a role-playing game kind of fare.
Yeah, it is important to point out, though, that he isn't doing this by himself. There is him, Goblero, whatever they named him.
Hold on. Yeah.
And then there was Gabishi, or Goblerishi, which is his like best friend, who he like immediately adopts because he's strong and doesn't think for himself.
He's strong and dumb for an Goburo is his name. I didn't write down the other guys' names.
Gabishi or Gabrishi or something like that. Dumb goblin names.
Yep.
And then those two are going around when they're still very young goblins and getting food so that they can level up.
Yep. Goburo is the brains of the operation, as well as he's got the skill, because he's got his past life where he apparently had fought a lot.
Oh yeah.
So he's bringing tactics and strategy and teaching his lackey how to do that as well.
Yeah, and then he gets that one girl goblin.
There's the female goblin. Yes, she kind of she fangirls.
Oh yeah, she fangirls hard. She is a otaku
for Goburo.
For Goburo, yeah. Where she becomes the like swift, nimble, like light range fighter. So you definitely see a tank, a mid-range DPS, and a long-range DPS evolve from this trio. And they use that as their like tactics for taking out even large packs, because there is that where they take out
a bunch of direwolves, essentially.
Direwolves
that were hunting an ogre, or a troll, or whatever it was.
An
orc.
That fantasy genre. Usually the orcs are like a pigman-y kind of thing.
Sure.
They like literally copied and pasted the orc from Sword Art Online, their last season. I'm like, that is just a blatant ripoff. And he's like, when he goes, oh, that's an orc. I was like, yeah, I know it's an orc. I saw it before. But no, they definitely develop this tactic, and at first all the other goblins get really jealous of. Gaburo almost gets murdered by like a pack of like 6 or 7 goblins that try to jump him while he's sleeping. Do you remember that part?
Yeah, they do like
the frozen butter Full Metal Jacket where they hold down
the jump in ceremony, to get somebody to like not be such a dickhead.
Yeah, they definitely almost give him a beat down, but he is like, thank goodness I had my search ability running at all times.
Yeah,
I knew they were gonna sneak up on me.
His consumption skill is essentially the Final Fantasy learnability for monsters.
Yes.
So he's picking up different traits and abilities, sometimes multiple traits or abilities, depending upon what he consumes. So it looks like it just feels like it's just going to be this progressive story of him becoming a more powerful force, and then moving into different areas that have a higher level cap and a stronger presence.
I do think he's going to... He did make a big point about how this group of goblins is now his family, and how he spent multiple days like working with the other goblins to try to train them to be good fighters like the 3 of them, especially because at this point, towards the end of the first episode, they have reached a specific level where they kind of pull a Pokemon and they evolve into hobgoblins.
Yep. They become more human.
Yeah, they look more human. For some reason, they lose their clothes. There is a part that has me a little concerned.
Okay.
It's the part where he mentions that they just have a bunch of trapped human women.
And he just brushes it off.
He brushes it off, and I am very afraid that in future episodes, we're going to get a Goblin Slayer episode.
Well, I mean, the context of that is the women are the breeding stock for the next generation of goblins.
Yeah.
Human women kept in captivity in the back of the cave.
Yeah. I'm a little nervous, is what I'm saying.
He has no morals.
I know. I fully realize that this man has 0 morals.
100%. Like, even before the background, which we just touched on, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see a lot more of.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see other people that have been isekai'd that he's had interactions with.
Yeah.
He was murdered by a woman who stabbed him relentlessly in an alley.
Like, I counted at least 17 times in the scene.
I'm pretty sure we're going to find out who she is and probably why that happened.
I do think that she has abilities.
That's kind of what I'm suspecting.
Because that moment when that knife went up and it did that like vibroblade thing from Star Wars and all the water fell off, I was just like, is she? And then it cut back to the actual episode, and you're just like, she's going to be really important throughout this season.
It may just be he got isekai'd from a world where Highlanders exist. Everybody's killing each other for their abilities. Yeah, I don't know. I think if we get an intersection of the world he used to live in with this one, it may make it a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's just not enough that's been unpacked to give us any idea of where this story may end.
Yep. As a fan of like isekai and shonen anime, the first couple episodes you gotta give it time, because they're trying to rapidly deploy you into these like fantastical worlds that you know nothing about in 24 minutes. Not even 24 minutes, because
about 20 and a half.
Yeah, like 20 and a half, because you got your standard minute and a half long intro and your minute and a half long outro.
Yep.
You get 20 minutes basically of trying to establish this world. Everyone I've seen, it unfortunately takes a couple episodes.
I started watching Shangri-La Frontier.
Okay.
Speaking of isekai, kind of, technically. And that did a really good job of establishing the plot line with the first episode.
I'm not saying they're all like that. I'm just saying sometimes they do take, because they try to just put in so much, and you're just like,
well, they just focus so much on they drilled down on the ability thing.
Yeah, they did really hyper focus on his ability thing. I mean, feel like they didn't want us to forget, even though it was kind of impossible for us to forget with how much they just like, oh, by the way, BT Dubs, he does this.
I mean, to be fair, too, reincarnated as a vending machine laid out the entire plot point of the first episode as well.
Being reincarnated as a vending machine, though.
No, there was more to it than that.
I know. I haven't actually seen that one.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see where this goes. One thing I'll give it, in which angers me, because this kind of seems to take... So, the majority of the anime I watch is a lot of slice of life and romance. The animation quality is very substandard. They cut a lot of corners, yet the isekai, the shonen shows usually have much cleaner and flashier animation.
That was another point that I wanted to make, too, is that the animation was definitely very good.
It was clean.
It was very clean. There wasn't that, like, occasionally you get that, like, choppy animation of, like, even of, like, stuff in the background that people don't think you're going to pay attention to, but even the background stuff seemed really clean, well animated.
The character designs are simple.
Very simple,
but they work.
But as they evolve, they do get more detail.
Sure.
I think they deliberately do that on purpose to show you the difference between, like, a goblin, a hobgoblin, and potentially other things that they'll evolve into as the show goes on.
The arc looked pretty bad, though.
Probably.
Its face was bad, I thought. So the final show, the dual pick, is Astro Note. So Astro Note is a slice of life romantic comedy, and what it deals with is it deals with a unemployed chef named Takumi Miyazaki. Sorry. He applies for a help wanted ad for a location called Astro House to be its in-house chef. He shows up expecting something luxurious based upon the writing of the wanted note, and finds a rundown Showa era share house. He immediately becomes smitten with the woman who acts as the share house's manager. This woman named Mira Gotokuji, and the cast of eccentric boarders clue into this fascination of his and do everything they can to convince him to take up this less than glamorous position as the cook in the share house. So he agrees to the job. We begin to see the development of him trying to court Mira. So for anime viewers who have been around for a long time, this is going to sound really familiar. This is pretty much carbon copy with some differences of the classic slice of life romance Mason Ikoku by Rumiko Takahashi. It was her second series after Urusei Yatsura. Personally, my favorite series, and probably my favorite romance. Differences are, though, is Mira is an alien. She is a princess of an alien kingdom who somehow made it to Earth after fleeing an attack. And she has a companion that is in the form of a poodle, who is essentially her taskmaster and maybe even guardian. And so what we know from the first episode is she's trying to find some key that they've detected within the area of the house that she needs to go back to her people to probably try to like undo whatever's happened with her and whatever has driven her there.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is very much Mason Ikoku. There were even many references or what appeared to be references to me that reminded me of Mason Ikoku. The first one I picked up on, beyond the entire plot idea, was in the beginning when he shows up and she falls off of the ladder and like he catches her or something. Yeah. He throws he puts his hand in what is essentially the I love you sign in sign language. So that's a hand motion that is throughout much of Rumiko Takahashi's work, beyond just Mason Ikoku. All the characters do it all the time. Ranma 1/2, they do it the most. Okay. I would say. Another thing is there was the miscommunication of him listening in and she's talking about her alien race.
Yep.
And to him, it sounds like the Japanese word for a widower or a widow.
Yeah.
So in Mason Ikoku, the female manager, she is a widow. Her dead husband's family are the owners of the house, and she's doing it because of obligations to the family.
Yeah.
There is a character who is a middle-aged, eccentric, creepy, unemployed guy.
Oh, the deadbeat dad is what I called him.
Mason Ikoku has one of them as well, but he's not a father. In Mason Ikoku, there's this old drunk woman, and she's the one that has the kid.
Okay.
But now in Astro Note, we have the unemployed guy with the kid.
Yeah.
Then there's the young girl who is trying to be a pop idol of sorts.
Yeah.
She's kind of an analog to a character from Mason Ikoku who worked as a hostess at a bar.
Okay.
Another thing I picked up on is that the room number that the main character is staying in is the same room number as the main character in Mason Ikoku.
So this is just a love letter to this show. This
is a love letter to Mason Ikoku, and I am all about it.
That's fair. No, I really enjoyed this episode. I'm going to start off right away. The animation at the very beginning was very 1990s anime.
Okay.
There was something about it that just I felt like I was watching like Gundam from the 90s, or like maybe even like I wouldn't say G.I. Joe because that's kind of a but it felt very 1990s animation style.
Sure.
It did not initially like clue into me that I was watching a modern anime.
The artwork has there's a glow to it. There's like a soft edge, a soft diffused edge to the artwork.
Yes, especially the characters themselves.
Particularly Mira.
The background art seems like it belongs in like this generation's anime. But the characters themselves feel like maybe one or two art styles behind. And I feel like they really do that on purpose so that you focus on those characters and their distinct like things about. It was really hard for me to focus on the background stuff when there was so much going on with each of the characters and how they're, for me, it's really drawing to look at the characters and see the weird like idiosyncrasies each of the characters have based on the art style that I saw in this at least first episode.
No, the characters definitely have very identifiable, accentuated, or enhanced personalities. The personalities of the character comes through with the way that the character is drawn and the way that they behave, particularly with the very interesting way that they change the perspective when close-ups, like when both the deadbeat dad and then like the psychotic pink-haired idol wannabe girl, when they like pop up and it turns fisheye and there's like the eyeball right in his face.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about when the deadbeat drinks her beer and then blames Takumi by handing it off to him, and she's like, you see the number right here? Like, there's a lot of gaslighting in this show, especially when the deadbeat dad and the pink-haired girl are like, she's single. Hey, yo, she's single. Like, you should stay and cook for us because she's single.
Yeah, their motivation was Mira was the one that was doing all the cooking, and not being human, her cooking was terrible.
I did a really good example that I really had to pause. I was laughing so hard. It was the salmon roe rice balls.
They're dust, essentially, charcoal dust.
I wouldn't say the salmon roe fish balls, or I keep saying fish balls. Rice balls were very burnt. Very burnt. They looked wet.
Where Takumi is a trained chef. So in theory, he knows how to cook. There's gonna be a lot of catalyst in not necessarily the plot, but a lot of the action that's gonna take place where the other tenants of the house harass him over his feelings for Miro. Because
that came up in the trailer.
He's not gonna want to come out right away because he doesn't want to make things awkward. It's the whole like tentative thing, and that was the entire catalyst of Mason Ikoku as well.
And correct me if I'm wrong. There's a slight taboo on pursuing widowers in Japan. I'm not 100% sure.
Not that I can really think of. No.
I know there are some cultures where like going after a widower is like really frowned upon.
No, not really in Japan.
Okay.
So if we stick on it's going to follow a lot of the same patterns as Mason Ikoku. I suspect that the moment where he first does some sort of confession to her, he will probably be drunk.
Probably.
Because that's exactly how it happened in Mason Ikoku.
That is also how it happens in a lot of romance anime.
True, but it was quite spectacular in Mason Ikoku.
Okay.
He came home in the middle of the night, she gave him shit for being late and loud, and he's pretty much stood up on the wall and screamed to the neighborhood that he loved multiple times. Like, it was a pivotal moment within the story.
Okay.
So, we may see something like that.
I would also like to comment that this share house is the most eclectic group of people I have ever seen.
Yes.
There is Tiny Grandpa.
Yes.
May or may not be maybe a porn writer.
I forgot that he's a novelist.
I don't know about this little grandpa yet. There is the little boy who is the son of the deadbeat dad.
He is a precocious little lad.
He is, yes, very precocious. There is the deadbeat dad.
Yes.
Who takes pride in his ability to live and not have a job.
Yes.
And just profit off of everyone else.
He is a unabashed freeloader.
Yeah. Shameless. Completely shameless.
Very shameless.
And then there is I'm gonna probably say like mentally insane, like
pink-haired
girl who wants to be like this pop idol and like sings these songs that are kind of violent. Just reading the lyrics of her song that she's singing at Takumi's welcome party, I'm just like, girl, are you okay? Do you need help?
No, she definitely has schizophrenic vibes to her.
Oh yeah, she hears voices. She definitely hears voices.
She is quick to anger and violence.
Yes. Like, even when she thought somebody was criticizing her during Takumi's party, she's like, I'll kick your ass.
Yeah, she's like, who do I have to cut a bitch?
Yeah. And then there's Takumi, who seems normal.
He's the average guy.
And then there's Mika, who's a literal alien. Who
yes.
Doesn't know what a smartphone is.
No.
She thought Wi-Fi was a wife.
She's hiding the fact that she's an alien for obvious reasons, but she doesn't understand what she needs to hide.
I think that's the best part of this, is that she like is fascinated by the fact that you can Google anything on a smartphone. She's like, you can look up anything?
Yeah.
And then later on, when she's with the poodle that is her handler or whatever, she's like, can I get a smartphone? You can look up anything.
And he pretty much understands that he can't trust her.
That poodle creeps me out a bit. Especially when you first see him, he's like climbing up like Gollum out of the window, and you're like, what is this dog doing?
Yeah, he was definitely trying to protect her from Takumi.
Oh, definitely. I did have to pause laughing again when he comes back in to accept the job, and the poodle bites him in the back of the head and does the like standard anime trope of the blood spray everywhere. There were a lot of points in this episode, and this anime is just so far, where I genuinely laughed. I genuinely am invested in it already, and it's only the first episode.
Yeah. So with this one, as opposed to the other two, this is an original anime. This is an original series. Yeah. So we have no idea. There's no source material. We have no idea. The other two, the other two we can look up and kind of find out where it goes. But this one, no. It lays out pretty straightforward. I mean, it's a romance, so obviously there's the end goal of if not success in the coupling, there's definitely the end goal of mustering up the courage to confess the love to the person, to the object. So we'll have we have that train. But then we also have the subset of her and her whole thing with being this runaway princess and some device, some object, a key that she needs to discover, and understanding why, and then where she goes from there.
Xena Warrior Princess, the anime.
Oh God. We know from the trailers that a fiancé is going to appear.
That's right.
At some point.
That is right.
So in Meisune Koku, we didn't necessarily have a fiancé, but we did definitely have a dapper rival to the main character's failed college student.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see where this goes. Artwork is fantastic. The characters are a lot of fun. I mean, it's Meisune Koku. I can't. It's a modern Meisune Koku. I can't.
I'm very invested in this, just based upon the character development that has already happened in the first episode, the captivating artwork, and even the sound design was really good.
Yeah.
As a fan of just like sound design in general for like video games, movies, even short clips on YouTube, the sounds were awesome. This might not be big to a lot of people, but just like when it cuts to whatever was chasing her and she gets away and he like grips his little throne thing and you like hear the anger in the grip.
Oh, the alien species that was chasing her?
Yeah, that the sound design of just him gripping that, you're like, he's legitimately angry. You can hear it in the sound design of him gripping that.
So that whole opening sequence, that was more akin to late 70s hard sci-fi anime like Captain Harlock.
Yeah.
That's more what that was a throwback to, or like early 80s.
Fair. Like, and again, not being in the game for that long, being somebody that grew up in the 90s.
Yes.
That would be things that I like. That level of animation were things that I would watch on TV.
Sure. Correct.
And
something like Outlaw Star, perhaps.
Yeah, and that's what, as a child of the 90s, that's what I would see on TV when I would turn on my Sunday or Saturday morning cartoons.
Yep.
I really got that like nostalgia vibe from that animation style at the very beginning.
Yep. I think Takumi is probably going to be the weakest link in the entire story. Probably.
He's not very interesting.
No, he's generic boy.
Right. He's very generic. He is soup can of, the 5-course meals that are all presented with all the other characters.
Yes.
Maybe he'll get something interesting halfway through, or maybe even in the next episode.
Oh, we'll find out.
I don't want to put him out of the game just yet. I'll root for an underdog.
Well, he definitely is the underdog, though. He will be, especially once the fiancé shows up.
I will give you that. He's definitely the underdog of the show so far.
Yes. So that kind of wraps up week 1. I'm pretty sure the remainder of the rest of the weeks probably won't be as long. We had to kind of do explanations of the general plot lines of the shows. I don't know. Voice acting. Thoughts? Final thoughts, I guess.
So for the voice acting one, I would probably say that this is going to be your pretty standard, like, slice of life, two people getting to learn to be each other's friends level anime. It definitely gives me the interaction of some of the girls in Skip and Loafer.
Okay.
And just kind of see as those, she said this, she said that kind of friendship starts to develop.
Miscommunication.
Yeah. The first episode of this one, I would probably give it a solid, B. It's a great intro.
Yeah, it did a good job.
Some questions.
Did a good job of setting up. I think it just laid out the entire concept of the show. I mean, I would agree with you on a B. It does a really good job of establishing the characters, establishing the premise of the show, and giving us an idea of what to expect out of it. Which I think is just going to be standard slice of life comfort food. I don't think it's going to be anything dynamic, nothing spectacular. Just
I don't think it's changing the genre of slice of life. I don't think it's going to be groundbreaking. No. I think it will be entertaining, but
sure,
I don't think it's changing the game.
Oh, I wonder if we're going to get a beach episode. It depends on who the audience is, really.
Is it a bunch of otakus?
I'll have to look up to see where the manga is being published. Is it published in Jump? Then we're probably getting a beach episode. Okay, so Remonster. The artwork looks great. It makes me mad that shonen anime get a lot of really, really good artwork, and the shows I don't get really terrible artwork.
Just like Jujutsu Kaisen already.
Yeah, I mean, no. Jujutsu Kaisen's entire likability is through its amazingly choreographed action sequences.
So good. Demon Slayer.
Yeah. So I don't know why they just half-assed it into the video game aspect.
Yeah, that's where, to me, it probably lost a little bit of its letter grade.
Sure.
Because the video gaminess seems very half-assed. It's like it's shoehorned in there
An
like
afterthought.
the last minute. Yeah.
Yeah. I would probably give it a C. It did okay, but I think it got distracted by the minutia.
Yeah.
Instead of developing the story more.
I was originally gonna give it, like, until they introduced the video game-ness, and I really thought about it, I was like, probably give this like a solid B+.
Yeah.
But I think I'm probably gonna agree with you on like a low B-, a high C+,
Okay.
just because of the like shoehorniness of
The leveling,
the leveling and the video gaminess,
skill tracking systems, and the fact that the Grandpa Goblin even literally references levels.
Yes. That was like, really?
Like that's a part of their reality. They're not just avatars in a video game.
Right.
It was a bit weird.
It was very, very weird.
Yeah. And so Astro Note.
That show to me is I gotta give it like an A. I was thoroughly happy with the first episode. That, as of right now, I would binge watch that whole series if it was available right now.
Sure. I think this is going to be the best show of the season above all the other shows that are showing, at least for me. And a lot of that has to do with my love of Mason Ikoku.
That is fair.
Once I found out about it, I became very excited, and it's very pleasing. I can't wait for more episodes.
I just want to see more of that art style, the sound design.
It's great. It is really nice.
I did want to mention in Remonster, the sound design too, I did find very appealing as well.
The fighting, the eating.
Yeah, very.
It's a
lot of eating.
They
ASMR. Like
they were a bit gratuitous in the bodily gore.
That's pretty tame for like
No.
shonen.
I understand that, but it was like, all right, interesting. I mean, Delicious in Dungeon is not as graphic, we'll say.
Fair, but
and that literally is a show about eating monsters.
For shonen, that's very on the light side of
correct
of violence.
Correct.
Like Jujutsu Kaisen, you're getting dudes blown in half, limbs blown off, blood, gore everywhere.
All I have to say to you is you need to watch Parasite.
Yes, that is on my list of things to watch.
If you want to talk about visceral dismemberment.
Fair. No, that is definitely on my list of shows to watch.
Anyways, that's week 1. So thank you for tuning in. I don't know, David, if you have any final words?
No, I'm very much looking forward to reviewing these animes and kind of getting into the grittiness of just analyzing anime in general. I feel like this is a great gateway into kind of getting out there and starting to do either video or audio content.
Sure. All right. Well, thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.